truthfully, that's not what I want for my life anymore. And when I think about it, right, those days of like me being in the bar having like a margarita with my friends and dancing, those were like 20 years ago. What the last 10 years of my drinking looked like me laying in bed, throwing up in Walmart bags, and my kids crying, begging me to like stop.
Welcome to LoveliEsteem. I'm Loveli, the auntie you always wanted, the sister girlfriend you didn't know you needed, honey. You got to have self-love to have self-esteem. And here we know that God don't make no junk. So we're going to sit down, talk about it, and see how we can fix it, baby. Let's do it. Hey guys, this is Loveli with LoveliEsteem, and welcome back to the Healing Through Conversations podcast. Today I get to speak with Miss Shana Epps. Miss Epps reached out to me, and I feel like this is a special episode because Miss Epps is like the first professional to really reach out to me to be on the podcast, other than me soliciting for guests to be on the podcast, which I'm grateful for. Okay, let's just have a conversation. Miss Epps is a nationally certified peer recovery support specialist and an NLP coach with a profound focus on aftercare services. After battling alcoholism and addiction for nearly 2 decades, Shana's personal journey inspires her to aid women in smoothly transitioning from rehabilitation facilities back into the challenges of life. Listen, I was reading the bio and then I went to her page. She is a hoot, okay? And I mean hooty hoot. It is great. She has such a vibrant presence online. And I love that because sometimes when we fail, we have this tendency to think that we're only allowed to present ourselves in the way that we did when we were in those troubled spaces. We have a really hard time trying to figure out how to get out of said space and what our new lives look like, what it feels like to be a recovering alcoholic or a recovering addict or a recovering from mental health disorders or illnesses. You're allowed to still have a life while you're trying to recreate, rediscover, and strengthen who you are, to rebuild who you are. You don't have to sit in this, you don't have to sit in this tragic space. You don't have to sit in this dark space. You don't have to sit in this uncomfortable space for the rest of your life because that's the only person that people around you know. Sometimes you're going to have to change the people, places, spaces, things that you do in order to become the real version of yourself. And that's going to feel uncomfortable because any kind of recovery is uncomfortable. Any kind of addiction is uncomfortable. And when you get to a place where you can like really get deep down into who you are and discover your greatness, discover your kindness, discover your strength, your resilience, discover how your weaknesses are really just, it's beautiful windows into your soul that allow other people to connect with you. So I feel like this episode is gonna be great. I even was thinking to myself, like, okay, what are we gonna call this episode? Because I'm really big on naming an episode, especially when we have such a beautiful person on the podcast, right? And I was like, I need something kind of like juicy, right? I want something that really expresses what it feels like to have be in your darkest moments and still come out on top. So this episode is called Rising After the Fall, baby, overcoming setbacks and relapse on your personal recovery journey. And it don't have to be alcohol that we're recovering from, baby. Some of us are recovering from being victims in our own lives. And I feel like we're going to have a great conversation. Hey guys, this is Loveli with LoveliEsteem, and welcome back to the Healing Through Conversations podcast. Today, as I previously said, I am excited to speak to Miss Epps. I feel like when we can get to a place in our lives when our weaknesses and our vulnerabilities become our strength and our resilience, it is top notch. And being able to say, hey, I'm not doing well. Hey, I'm not feeling well. This life that I'm living isn't really the life that I see for myself. And how can I build on this life? And then how can I turn this into my purpose and then take off into the sky? And I feel like when you meet somebody who says, wait a minute, what we're doing isn't working, and let me show you how to make it work for you, not the way I did it, but for you. And that to me is just so beautiful. So, Miss Epps, thank you for being on the podcast. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. You're so cute. I love everything you're doing. So, my name is Shana, and I spent a long time struggling with alcoholism. It's crazy because I remember back then really feeling like so lost and like I was never ever going to be able to live a life that I actually enjoyed or was proud of. All those things. I had had my first daughter when I was 16 years old. I had had like a series of really bad relationships. I won't say a lot of relationships, right? But I was definitely looking for love in all the wrong places. I was one of those girls who was always in a relationship and it wasn't good, right? And I think somewhere along the lines, I had a really great childhood. Not that we didn't have problems or not that I don't have things that I look back and I'm like, oh, like I wish that wasn't a thing. But my parents are really good people. They love me, they care about me, they've been there for me. So I also had a hard time wondering like why am I going through this, right? Like usually when people have problems with substance abuse or things like that, you'll see a lot of trauma or like they've had a really hard time growing up. And I just did not have that, right? So I spent a lot of time going like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? And honestly, I think that what I found in my sobriety was, as crazy as it sounds, a lot of it had to do with self-esteem. It really had to do with who I felt I was as a person and not feeling like I was good enough for some reason or feeling like there was always something wrong with me or like I was missing something and really being willing to settle. And the more I settled, the more I was drowning, right? Like using alcohol to try to numb and all of this. And I found myself in a place I was working in treatment. So I had this head full of knowledge and belly full of liquor, right? I worked in treatment. I knew all the things about recovery. I had been going to AA, doing AA for years, and nothing wrong with AA at all. I still love things about AA, the 12 steps and whatnot. But a lot of times when you're in a program for alcoholism or about sobriety, that program will really be like, okay, this is what you have to do to get sober, or this is what this is what you need. And when it doesn't work for you, it's like, oh, well, you didn't want it bad enough, or, that
Mm.
type of thing. And the truth is that just like we all don't wear the same shoe size or whatever, there's not one way to get sober. There's not one way that works for every single person out there. AA is a wonderful program. It works for millions of people. Guess what? There's a very low success rate. So there's a lot of people that it's not working for.
Mm.
So we have to at some point take that into consideration and be like, hey, maybe this isn't the only way. It is definitely a way and it's a great way. But for me, I ended up needing a little more. I ended up being able to go on medication, and that was the kick that I needed to be able to get
Mm.
sober. And like I said, I still do a lot of work with the 12 steps. I do like meditation. I do so many different things. But without finding the medication that worked for me, I believe that I would have ended up not even here, right? I think I would have ended up dying of alcoholism. And I was super close. I was at a place where I was not doing well. I was in the early stages of liver failure. Um, by the time that I found the medication that worked for me. And I really just thought, like, I'm that person who's never going to get it. Like, I would get sober. I had been to treatment numerous times. I would get sober and I would get home. And I swear to you, it would be a week and I would be drunk. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm really trying, like, I really want it, and I just can't. So when I found medication and that worked for me, I really started thinking about how many people out there think that there's just something wrong with them and they're just not able to get sober. Like, how many people do we really know that have tried to get sober over and over again and it hasn't worked for them? And a lot of times that feeling is failure, right? And you just want to give up. So I ended up starting my business, which is I do sobriety coaching, and it's really close to my heart because it really is about the people I love working with are people who have tried to get sober and it hasn't worked for them. They've tried rehab, they've tried all these things, and it's like, let's try different ways. Let's stop trying the same thing over and over again and just considering yourself a failure. Because, my mom used to tell me this, it used to drive me crazy, but she would say, like, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm not trying to do the same thing. I'm not trying to. It just keeps happening. Quit saying that to me. And now that I'm sober, now that I'm living a life that I actually enjoy and that I'm happy to wake up to, I think about that and I'm like, I really did try the same thing over and over again. And why isn't this working? Well, because it's not working for you. You have to do something different. So that's really what my platform became about. I had never ever done like a video. Like I said, I was super insecure. I was super shy. And when I got sober, I could have just like crawled under a table. And for some reason, God was like, no, like, you need to speak your truth. You need to get out there and talk to people about what you've been through so that they don't feel alone like you felt alone. And it somehow turned into like me doing a podcast, me doing all these videos. And it's so funny because that is like not how my personality started out. So I've really grown as a person and I really think I've grown into my skin. Just like, you see those little puppies and they're full of all that skin, right? And you're like, what is going on? And they got to grow into it. And that's really what happened for me, I think.
I it's so many things, but one, let's always celebrate and congratulate because I've been the child of an addict. I've been in a household with addicts. I've grown up in neighborhoods with addicts. I know that this isn't oh, I'm over it now. No, this is an everyday, minute by minute, second by second decision, very conscious decision to stay in the life that you want. So we need to make sure that we're celebrating that because it's not just, and now I'm here to tell you how to do this. No, I'm also doing this for me. You get to reap the benefits of my sobriety. And
Yeah.
that is beautiful because I think that when we fail, a lot of the times we think we can't bounce back or we have to somehow stay in that skin. Like wherever you were when you failed that one time, this is how people see me and I need to stay here. This is how I need to look. This is how I have to dress. This is how I have to talk. This is how I have to walk. And instead of realizing that you can rediscover yourself, you can recreate yourself, you can rebuild yourself. And that's exactly what you just told us you've done.
Yeah. No, and it's so, so true. I had kind of like a rocky relationship with my sister, and my sister's like 10 years older than me, and she's very like master's degree, and I would call her Martha Stewart. She got on my last nerves, right? Before Martha Stewart went to jail though, but but she'd be like at home canning jam and like the perfect mom, and I was always like the black sheep, right? Like I was a little crazy. I had a little I don't know, I was just always all over the place. And I would always be like, oh, she's so mean. Like she would say the most mean things. And again, my mom was like, you know what? Like she you don't think she's mean, and it's not what she's saying. What it is you believe what she's saying about you. Like you actually think these things about yourself. Like who cares what she thinks, right? You think that. So when she's saying these things, it's bothering you because that's who you feel you are. And
Mm.
when I really thought about that, I was like, no, like you're right. I'm not proud of who I am. I'm not proud of the things I'm doing. And when I was able to get sober and actually look around, when I first opened my eyes, when I got sober this last time, I was like, holy ish. Like I
Well,
had
just so
like
you know, we curse on this podcast,
okay,
but you can.
holy shit. I had a credit score of like 200. I had no job. I had three baby daddies. Like I'm telling you, like I looked around and I was like, I'm 35 years old and like this is what I have to show for myself, right? And usually what happens is people look around, they start shaming themselves, they start feeling
Mhm.
bad. And what happens? You end up drinking or using again because that shame cycle will
Mhm.
have you doing the same thing. I just decided like I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is change the things I don't like. I used to like look at certain women and I would be like, why does she have that? Like, how did she
Mm.
get that? And I
Mm.
don't have that. She has such a nice husband. She has such a nice house. And one day I was just like, why don't you just ask her how she got that? And if you want it, go get it. Like, we are responsible for the things that we have in our life or don't have. And if I'm not happy where I'm at, I got to be the one to get up and change it, right? And that's what I started doing was just writing down like simple little things like if I do this, ask this person how did they fix their credit? And I did that. Me and my husband ended up buying a house within I think like 6 months of me getting sober. I really just started working on really small things that I wanted to change and asking people like, hey, how did you do that? And
Mhm.
people will tell you, like people will talk to you. People really are like a lot nicer than we think most of the time.
Yep.
And most of the time it's us that's over here like, ugh, why do they have that? Or why did they
Mirroring
get
our
to
own
do that?
self, yeah, mirroring our own low self-esteem.
Yes, and the truth is that people who have nice things, people who have worked for the life that they want, they're proud of it and they've worked hard for it and they will share with you how to do that if that's what you want, right? Most of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just started doing that like, hey, I'm really interested in this. Like how did you do this? How did you And as I started working on my life in sobriety and this is the game changer. When I started working on my life in sobriety and I started building a reality that I didn't hate, I stopped wanting to go back to always just numbing out, just
Mm.
disappearing from life because I was excited about the things that were in front of me. I was happy again. I wasn't like arguing all the time with my kids, with my family, everyone, right? I had things that I was proud of and I was happy. I had my dog, my fur baby that I like love to death. So like when I think about using now, there's like a whole lot of back steps that I would have to take to even wanna think about that, right? So when you get to that place, it's an amazing feeling. And that's what I want is to see other women have that to where it's not like, oh, I got sober, right? Because you'll see people stay sober for long periods of time and then they'll end up relapsing.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Right? Because they haven't changed their reality. They haven't changed what's going on around them. And what you're going to want to do is go back to your normal when you're sitting in the same life.
That I so many things. And because I'm my big push is always mental health.
Hmm.
Super huge. And because all of us, mental health is living. If you are alive, you are going through mental health differences and
Hmm.
similarities. And I think that when we talk about relapse, and that can be in any place in your life, you don't have to be an alcoholic. You could be a person who keeps trying to get the same job, or keep trying to have the same friends, or keep trying to make relationships with the same family member that's not working. It could be the
Hmm.
fact that you keep walking into spaces that you know aren't good for you, but you go in there because the thing that you feel like you're missing, you feel like if I keep doing the same thing, eventually it's got to get better. It's somebody's
Right.
going to love me, somebody's going to want me. And it can be so frightening to change the people, places, and things around you, because we all want normalcy. But some of us get stuck in victimizing ourselves. And I think that that's what you spoke of so perfectly, not wanting to be the victim anymore. You saw yourself in this beautiful light where I'm growing. I can do like all the things that I wanted, I actually can do in this space. Why do I want to go back to being a victim and watching myself crawl back out of that rainy? I always say it's sometimes when you're trying to recover from different things in your life, it's like you are trying to climb out of a hole and it keeps raining and staying muddy, and you may get a couple steps up, but you just slide right back down. And
Hmm.
you have to get over the woe is me. Like you're going to have to say, excuse my French again, because I try to warn people before I'm going to curse, but like you have to say, like, bitch, get up. We
Yeah.
don't want to do this. This is the life that I see for myself. And if it's the life that I see for myself, why do I see me always losing? Why do I think that I'm supposed to lose? Why am I the one who has to stay at the bottom? And like you mentioned before, self-esteem. That's what my company means. Love yourself, finding self-esteem, building on it, becoming
I
the best
love it.
version of yourself. So like, and that doesn't mean that the best version of you looks like someone else. You may have to create the mold that you want to be in. And that to
Mm.
me is woo, top notch. I love it, girl. I love it.
Yes, definitely. I think honestly, and that's another thing, when you look at people who have substance abuse issues, 99.9% of the time, there's mental health issues, right? There is a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression, a lot of times there's so much trauma, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times we're just trying to mask all those
Mm.
feelings with these substances. And so, like, mental health and substance use is really, really tightly intertwined, and people
Yeah.
don't always want to look at that. But truthfully, it usually is a dual diagnosis situation.
Hmm.
And when I stopped using alcohol, what I didn't know, I thought I was super anxious, super depressed, all of these things. First of all, if you're on medication and you're drinking, it's likely not working. But second
Yes.
of all,
Yes.
second of all, when I stopped doing this cycle of drinking all the time, a lot of the anxiety and depression lifted on its own. The other thing that we don't normally think about is that we've been, when a woman gets pregnant and she has a baby and she's trying to like get back in shape and all this stuff, right? We're always telling her, it took you 9 months to have that baby, calm down, right? We never think of that when it comes to like our bodies and our mental health and things like that. I've been drinking for 20 years, but in 30 days I want to feel like Tyra Banks. Like that
Speak
that's
on
not
it. Speak on
that's
it.
not a thing. Like I don't think that I told you I had gotten sober so many times. I had gotten sober for like 30 days, 60 days, whatever. And I would always feel super bad for most of the time. I was super anxious. I was super depressed. I was in bed a lot. And I was like, who wants to live like this? This is
Hmm.
why people drink. Well, Shayna, that's not how your normal body is, right? Your body's trying to figure out, your brain is trying to figure out, what are you doing? Like
Hmm.
you were feeding me all this fake dopamine from substances. Now it's all gone. Now I'm not making dopamine, GABA, any of that stuff, right? And I'm just sitting there like, what's next? Waiting. So your brain it can take even up to 2 years, right? for it to go back to like normal functioning, like where you're going to be for life. So what's funny is like at around 2.5 years of sobriety, I started getting so happy. Like I was really happy. I was having fun, and it was crazy because I was like, this is like the best year of sobriety I've had. And it was weird to me because I thought, most of that stuff would happen like in the first year. But no, I felt better as the years went on, right? Because my body was coming to like, I know what's going on, I know where I'm supposed to be. And I created new neural pathways where it wasn't like as soon as something went wrong, I would feel like I needed a drink. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, on my everyday life, I talk a lot about sobriety because I like to tell people where I was at. And so they know that what they're going through is normal. But my everyday life, I'm not thinking about alcohol. I'm not like, please don't drink today. Like, please don't. Like I'm craving all the time or something. I rarely have like cravings or things like that. And if I do, it's more of like like I wish I could just like numb out for a second, right? Everybody
Mm-hmm.
gets that.
Everybody gets there. Yeah.
Yeah, but truthfully, that's not what I want for my life anymore. And when I think about it, right, those days of like me being in the bar having like a margarita with my friends and dancing, those were like 20 years ago. What the last 10 years of my drinking looked like me laying in bed, throwing up in Walmart bags, and my kids crying, begging me to like stop. There
Yeah.
was nothing cute about it. There was nothing fun about it. And no, that's not what I want to live like anymore.
And
So I think, go ahead.
no, no, no. I'm so sorry, but I wanted to say one, I loved how you just really gave a beautiful picture of how we hold on to trauma, right? So you said me sitting with my friends having a margarita. That is a beautiful picture, right? We're standing, we're having fun, we're dancing, we're together. And that is the core memory. So we're
Mhm.
trying to get back to the core memory. But what we tend to forget, especially when we go through so much trauma, even if we inflict it on ourselves, is that the steps from hanging out with my friends at the bar and dancing to stumbling out the bar to trying to relive this life, to friends going off and doing different things, to us feeling sad and depressed about why isn't my life moving in that direction, to falling into the traumas that we have, even if it's within relationships, like how fast the years go by. And then you get to this space where you're like you said, why are my kids crying? Why am I throwing up in a bag? Because I was just dancing at the bar with my friends, but because the addiction has literally caused you to have dissociative amnesia through so much of your life,
Yeah.
you forget that there's so many years in between that were bad, that we, even as the people who are caregivers or caretakers, we also fall victim to that because we're like, why can't you just do better? It's been 10 years, but we forget that you are not 10 years sober.
No, and that's the crazy thing. Even I will say, so I had my daughters super young, my older daughters. I have a 22-year-old, a 18-year-old, and a 9-year-old, right? So my older daughters, I got sober 3 years ago, and they wanted nothing but for me to get sober. And when I got sober, I thought I was great and amazing. And really, I had no patience. I was super edgy all the time. I like being newly sober and having all these emotions that you've never felt, you have no idea what to do with. You're arguing with teenagers. And I'll tell you, the hardest time that I've had with my children in my life has been in my sobriety because I'm not the person who they knew. I am not. They didn't know me as this person at all, right? Like I was someone who they had to take care of. We were super, super codependent.
Mm.
So I remember I moved home from Texas to Michigan and got sober. And my oldest daughter stayed in Texas. And I talked to her one day. She like stayed with her boyfriend. And she was like, "Do you know why I stayed here?" And I was like, "No. I mean, I guess because you were like in love, right?" And she was like, "No, I just wanted it to be quiet. Like I just wanted calm. I didn't want any more drama. I didn't want to have to take care of anybody. I just wanted everything to be quiet." And
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" Like it never even occurred to me, right? How much she had been through. Like I said, I have a 9-year-old, right? So how long were my older kids taking care of that baby, right? They were taking care of her for years until I got sober. It was me and my girls,
Mm-hmm.
but really, they were the parent, right? And I really did pride myself as like, I'm this single mom and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Well, I wasn't really super present. So when I woke up in my sobriety, I had a lot of things that I had to go back and be like, okay, I mean, that's not real. Like, were you a single mom? Yeah. Were you the greatest mom? No, like you weren't present. You weren't doing the things that moms are supposed to do. You weren't at parent teacher conferences all the time or at, all their sports things or, I remember my oldest daughter driving me around when she was like 15, right? So she was supposed to be like doing her permit thing and all this stuff. And really, she was just driving me around because I couldn't drive. And I had like my car was messed up numerous times before she even had her license because she was driving everywhere by herself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I really think back about it, I have so many things, or I had so many things that I had to come to terms with myself, right? Like, I don't remember most of my kids' childhoods or anything like that. Like I'll hear moms talk about, like, "Oh, do you remember their first steps? And you remember that?" No, I remember nothing. I remember none of that. So it comes at a high cost that we don't always realize until after, far after.
Yeah. And
Uh-oh.
okay.
Cut me off. Are you there?
Yes. I'm like, you just glitched out. I was like, what happened?
Right? I was like, "Where'd she
I'm like,
go?"
Zoom said no. You guys are
It
enjoying
did.
yourselves too much. You like talking to each other. We're not this is
Right?
that. I'm like, first off, that's not what we do here. We don't cut each other off. We learn from each other. We're friends. No, but I think that what I was saying was I love how open and transparent you are because I think when we're healing, most of us, we only learn to heal from television shows that lasted 30 minutes. Um, we had reality TV. We kind of watched people stumble through, and we didn't realize they taped for a year and a half to
Right.
get to this sobriety, right? We just,
Right.
and also the everything needs to happen now kind of
Mm-hmm.
lifestyles that we have, people have lost a tolerance for patience and grace because giving people patience, like, hey, I don't fully understand what you're going through, but the least I can do is give you space and
Yeah.
grace as a human being to understand that you're going to need some time. You're going to need
Right.
more support than maybe I have to offer. So let me, if I can't offer the support, let's see, like you said, let's see alternatives to helping
Mhm.
us grow, to learning how to parent better, to becoming friends with our kids, because at some point you do reach a place as adults where their childhood is so long gone, you can't get that
Yeah.
back. That now you're like, how can we become associates? And now how can we become friends? And then we walk into a parent space instead of saying, well, I'm your mother and you're gonna have to listen to me. Not when I've seen you at your worst, lady. I don't trust that we're gonna do this well. And
Yeah,
but
it
that's hard
doesn't
for people.
work like that. And that's what I tried to do at first was just like, okay, like we're moving on. And I, my 18-year-old, she's 18 now. She actually was like, what do you just like now you want to be the Brady Bunch? Like I don't understand. Like this is not how my life has gone. This is not what we've done before. I'm gonna need you to like calm down and tell me like what are we even doing? And you don't realize that just because you're healing doesn't mean that everyone around you is healed, right? Just because you're healing doesn't mean everybody around you is okay. It doesn't mean everybody around you has forgiven you.
Mm,
It doesn't, you know, my oldest daughter, we were so close, like super codependent. I had her when I was 16 and she's been through everything with me, right? She never got mad at me. I think we've been in one fight in our whole entire lives up until I got sober. And I would tell her like that's all you ever wanted was for me to get sober. Now I feel like you don't even know who I am. Like I feel like we're not even like
because
close
she didn't know
anymore.
you. She didn't know the real you.
Right. And it really was like once she knew I was okay, like it was okay for her to feel her feelings
Mm-hmm.
and those resentments and those things that she always wanted to tell me and didn't get to tell me because she was scared. I'm going to say something and what is she going to do? She's going to like hurt herself. She's not going to be here anymore. Like she's barely holding on, right? So there were a lot of things that she never felt like she could deal with. And when I got sober, it was like, okay, girl, here you go. Like, here is everything I ever felt in life. And I was like,
I'm so
how?
happy right now. Why aren't you happy for me?
Like, can
Because
you just
I
be
haven't been
nice?
happy, mama.
Can you
Yeah.
just be nice? But I did. I honestly, I ended up getting my own counselor, which I mean, all the things that I had been through, I hadn't really ever done like a lot of counseling. And I started just working on me and like, listen, like it's okay for her to have her feelings. It's okay for her to like go through what she needs to go through and be resentful and do, you know, do these things
Mm-hmm.
that she's never felt. And she's going to have a process to go through. And I had to like back up and let that happen and not try not to be so upset, right? And the reason I am honest about all this stuff, it's not because I'm like super proud of it or anything like that, right? But it's because there's so much like, oh, you get sober and you're so happy. And yeah, like I have a really good life. But listen, there's a lot of things that happen that don't feel super good, like the changing relationships with my daughters. And hopefully in a few years things will be great between us, right? But I want people to know that you don't get sober and everyone around you is like woohoo, go girl. People are relieved that you're not dead and then they have their feelings
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's not, it doesn't always look like happy,
Yes. And I
and
think
that's
that
real.
no, for real. And I think that we also should remember that some people they want you the way you are because the way you were, they could control you. The way
Yeah,
you were, they could control the narrative, right? Because once you it's like best friends. Your best friend, they are madder for you than anybody else. Like they want to fight other people for you all the time. But what happens when you forgive the person that you were mad at, but your best friend can't, right? So
yeah,
that's the same way when you have people who have been around you. Like you said, if you were an alcoholic for 10, 15 years, that's the only version of you that they know. That's the
yep,
only version. And if they benefited from that in any kind of way, when you say, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I can't lend you any money anymore," or "No, I can't just show up anymore," or "No, you can't just come over anymore," or "Yeah, no, what you did what? No, that was inappropriate. I don't think that that's the way we're going to live." A lot of people start to try to turn you into the villain because how dare you change? How dare you become a better version of you? Like, or even people who were in addiction with you. Like, you're
Yeah.
leaving me. You think that you're better than me now? You're no better. And they try to feed into those insecurities. So we're not like watching a person go through addiction. I cannot even tell you the changes that it made in me as a child and how I felt, because I can understand what your daughters went through just because I was in that space. But being a person who was addicted and now is in sobriety, and the emotions that come along with that, the resilience it takes to like hold that weight and not say, you know what, I know how to numb this, or
Yeah.
to like to self soothe in the most toxic way. It's
Yep.
to is that rehab, that relapse, right? Like, I can make all
Mhm.
of y'all happy. Like,
Yeah.
I can end all of this. The
Right.
strength that it takes to not do that is is great, but what you're trying to do with your children, that is the purpose, right? Hey, you see what I went through. I don't want you to have to go through that, but B, I'm understand enough to let you be human.
Yeah.
Feel those emotions, feel those feelings. I'm not saying I'm enjoying it, because I'm not enjoying it.
Right.
But even if you don't, you're mad, as long as you're talking to me, I know we have a chance to work it out. When you stop talking to me, I don't know how to fix that. And
Right.
that's the part that of life that we have to make sure that we're paying attention to. When a person is angry with you and they're talking to you and they're calling you names, they still care enough about you. That's the fight. When they stop
Mhm.
talking to you, you're like, hey, remember me? Me?
Hello. Yeah, and it does. It hurts. And like family members, they all react differently. But the thing is like I have to continue to be healthy and do the right thing no matter how anyone acts in my life.
Mhm.
Even people I love, right? Like I can love you and understand that like we're not on the same page right now. And hopefully one day we will be, right? But there are so many things that go on in sobriety that can pull you back down. And I think like a lot of people do this stuff. And this is the reason why I really came up with my program, is because like we do things like go to rehab or we go to sober living. I would go to rehab for 30 days and I would go home and I'm like a single mom of 3 kids trying to work full time. Like I wasn't just in rehab, like not
Being
knowing
told what
what
to
to do
do
with my
every minute
life.
of every day.
Yeah. And then I would get home and I would be like surrounded by chaos. And like, what do I even do? Like, I don't even know what to do. And I would just drink, right?
Mhm.
So the point of sober coaching and the point of my program period is like being at home and being able to integrate sobriety into your life and being able to have constant support, right? Whether it's from me, whether it's from other women in the community, but really learning like different coping mechanisms, learning how to self soothe, right?
Yes.
Learning how to do something besides go to the liquor store, because the truth is it's going to make me feel better for 2 seconds, but I'm going to feel like shit tomorrow, not even just physically, right? It's like the anxiety, the like heavy elephant on your chest, like you've done something wrong again, right? No, like I want to be in a space where I have people around me. I have people I can call when something's wrong, right? And like our brain will lie to us. It's like, oh, it's been 3 weeks. I'm good now. Like, what, girl? You were in liver failure. Like, what?
See, it's the side head turn for me. Who are you talking to? Like, I'm not you. I, you, me. We're together. I know that I'm not doing well.
Right. But your brain will actually, and I used to work with this girl in rehab. She was a therapist and she would call the like the voices in her head the committee, right? And she'd be like, just tell the committee to shut the hell up, right?
And
Like
I tell him all the time, every morning, like, oh my God, really? This much? Mm.
right, whether it's like the negative voices like, oh, I've gained so much weight, or I'm not, as pretty as this girl, or yeah, I can just have one drink. Like, when have you ever had one drink? Like, when has that ever happened? It's funny because a lot of like sober coaches and people in the Instagram world or whatever will talk about how they always like were trying for moderation and it never worked for them. And I always have to laugh because I don't know that I ever even was going for that. Like there was never a when I drank, I wanted to get drunk. Like why else would you drink? I didn't understand that. I still don't really understand that. What I wanted to do was to get drunk and still be able to live a regular life, like go to work and not have the shakes and feel like I was going to pass out, have seizures when I didn't have alcohol, right? Like
Mm,
what I wanted to do was be able to drink and also successfully live. It just wasn't an option, right? But what I never was trying to do was like go out and have two drinks. Like, why would I do that?
yeah, yeah. But I think that, like I said earlier, and I love your outlook, right? Because it's very realistic. Like all of us, when we are in our addictions, no matter what the addiction is, we try to moderate how we move about so that we can still get the result that we want, but still look normal to everybody, right? So you're
Yeah.
like, hey, I am actively plummeting to my death, but my hair's done. Look at that. You see me?
Right.
I got dressed up today, and I think that that's the thing. Like the smoke and mirrors of going through something so traumatic. Because, like you said, if I've done this for 10, 20, 30 years of my life to my body, what do you think the ramifications are? Like it didn't just affect my skin. It didn't just affect my organs. It affected everything that I touched. And you don't realize how far reaching you as one person is to anybody or are to it to all of these different entities until you are sober and you have to look around and see the carnage that you've caused. But also, like you said, I also understand that in my sobriety, I can see the carnage, but I have to maintain a certain level of awareness so that I don't fall it's guilt is internal. That's something you wish you would have done. Shame is external. It's what people told you were supposed to do that you didn't do to make you normal. And you don't want to fall into shame because you can't make other people's opinions change about you. You can work on
Right.
your guilt. You can't work on the other people's shame. And I think that that's the part that I really adore about what you're talking about and how you are altering your program, right? You're saying, hey, I understand that there's all these ways, but let's try to work on a holistic way for you. Let's see what works best in your life because your life it looks different than my life. What if you only have one kid? What if you have just a dog? What if you have no one?
Right.
Let's work on how to make your life look best for you. So, like, when somebody wants to work with you, how do they reach you? How do they reach out? What's the steps that you really kind of take to figure out if you can help someone?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess anywhere on social media, right? You can reach out. I'm at Controlled Chaos Coaching on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I think I'm Shana Epps. But I also have a website. It's www.controlledchaoscoaching.com, and you can set up a free appointment with me. I'll always talk to you. I love talking to women. And if we can come up with a plan for you, I'm so down for that. There are people who are a good fit for my program. Are ready to get sober, ready to work with somebody. It's a 12-week program, and it's actually pretty amazing if I do say so myself. But there are many different ways to work with me, different pricing for people, who can't afford certain things or want different things, all the way up to we have like a really cool retreat set up. So it's really up to you. But I also have free options, right? Where if you want to talk to me, we can do a sobriety call, set up a plan for you, and just help you in that way, right? I have a free women's group. There's like over 1,000 people in there, and we help each other, right? We comment, we put up posts, all those things, and just try to support each other in staying sober. So there are many ways to work with me, but also there are people who maybe can't afford to buy a coach or things like that, and we have things for you too, right? So I think my main thing is if I can help women just realize that you can have a life that is good in sobriety, then I've, done what I'm here for. I really think that's like my purpose here.
And I love it. And I love that you understood you understood the prompt, right? Like you said, God picked me up and said, yeah, I'm not through with you yet. Like,
Wow.
I'm not through with you yet. And this isn't a religious call. This is a spiritual call, right?
Yeah.
And when your spirit is called to do something, it will hurt you until you do what you're supposed to do. And sometimes you're like, but did you have to hurt me that bad? And it's like you needed the lessons because I kept trying to tell you, and you just kept saying, no, I'm not ready yet. And sometimes you're not going to be ready, but it's
Mhm.
okay. That doesn't mean that you're a failure. It was lessons that you had to learn so that when you failed forward, because all of us, that's we're going through life, we're failing forward. There's something we're going to do today that we're going to be like, glad that wasn't on camera. Like,
Right?
so that to me is so wonderful, having free options to give people the chance. Because if you are a recovering addict, you're not just like recovering with $1 million in your bank account. That's not how it usually works for the regular person. So having those free options available until you can get to a space where you can afford to do a couple of maybe a la carte things. And then you move from a la carte to, oh, I can afford this program, to now, Shana, girl, guess what? I got the job that I always wanted to get, and I can
Right.
really afford to do the retreat. And you're building relationships, you're building self-esteem, you're building confidence, you're building self-trust, all the things that I truly believe in 100%, because I know that no matter what you're going through, when you don't trust yourself, you turn that trust over to other people, and they don't always have your best, the best outcome for you at heart. And sometimes it's because
Right.
their trauma is so difficult that they can't see you succeeding without them succeeding as well. And
Right.
I applaud you. I
Aw.
do.
I thank you so much for that. No, I think it's actually cool because, a lot of people think to be in my program, you have to be like getting sober right then or something like that. I really work with people no matter where they're at. And, people they mess up during the program. We keep going, right? This isn't like oh, you drank, you're done, you got to go. Your 60 days is over, right? It's
Yeah.
like, it is a work in progress and you keep going. And, there was a time where I looked back at all the times I had tried to get sober and I had relapsed a million times. Like, I couldn't even tell you the amount of times I've been to treatment. But there was a moment when I looked back and I had more time sober in the last year than I had drunk. And that was effing huge.
Mm,
Like sometimes you have to take the small things and you have to build on them, right?
mm.
Like it's great if I get sober today and I never mess up until the day I die, right? That's wonderful. But that's not how it always works. You
Yes.
got to keep going and you got to keep building. And my program is really for people like up until their first year of sobriety. So it's really not. Listen, it's about the substance when you get sober. It's really not about the substance. Like as soon as I got rid of alcohol, I just like looked around and there was all this other stuff that I had to fix because I had been pushing it down forever. And that is what you have to get rid of, fix, heal, figure out, or you're going to keep getting effed up. Like that's what it's about. It's not really ever about the substance. Like that's what we focus on, right? That's really not what it is. Like you have to heal.
I I love it. And that is for every aspect of life. That is every aspect of life, because she just put into words what a lot of people don't understand. You're looking at the thing in front of you that's falling apart. but you are forgetting all the things behind you that have crumbled that you have to now turn around and face, because no, you can keep fixing stuff moving forward, but there's some things we have to repair within ourselves, because if you don't repair yourself, you can't help anybody else. It's the grab the mask, put it on your face, then help others. And until you learn how to grab the mask and put it on your face, and you feel confident in putting that mask on your face.
Yeah.
And that's where Shana steps in. She helps you feel confident about the next step, because every step isn't easy. And some steps are going to be super easy and you're going to hit the wall and be like, fix it, Shana. And she's like, no, you fix it, because you have the strength to do that. So I thank you so much for being on the podcast. I wish nothing but for greatness for you, because I see
Oh,
how you are work. I love when coaches are coaching others, but really working on themselves, because I
yeah.
believe that that's how we continue to learn. This isn't at the end of 12 weeks, everything's perfect. Isn't
No.
it? No,
Now
it's
I'm 3 years in, girl, and I'm still in counseling. I'm still working on me, and I
not.
will continue.
I went to therapy so I could learn to be angry. It took a therapist to be like, you need to stop whatever you're doing. And why aren't you angry? I'm like, well, why would I be angry? Because it's an emotion you're supposed to feel. I said, oh,
See, my therapist is teaching me how to be sad instead of angry. She's like, why does everything come out as anger? And it was funny because we were going over this and I finally like said it out loud. Like anger to me is productive. Crying, just crying in my soup, it's like it does nothing for me. Like it just makes me feel bad. But at least if I get it out, I feel like someone's hearing me or someone's, but I went over with my counselor, like I don't want how I deal with things to always be on like a level 15.
yes,
Like I
yes.
want to be able to speak to people and they listen to me and they hear me. They're not like running from me, right? Like,
See, you on a
why are you
15,
so
I was on a
intense?
2. I'm like, oh, so you did that? Okay. All right. Well, let's see how we can fix it. My therapist was like, no, raise that level up, babes, because something's wrong
I'm
here.
I'm going down.
Look, and we'll meet in the middle.
Yes, the middle is a good place to
I
be.
always say, my big thing is my husband laughs at me. I was like, I just need a crispy pop, and that's me and my soda. I just want to open
Mhm,
up, but really it's sparkling, Italian sparkling water. I'm like, I
mhm.
just want the top part of the spark. It's like when people drink the Sprite or something. It's the crispy part at the top that I want. Everything else I don't want. So like we can meet there, because like, but
Right?
I see you
Yes.
doing so many great things. And again, I love your page.
Oh,
Please,
thank you
please
so much.
follow her Instagram page, because she really be out here like, listen, this is regular life. This is how things really feel when you're going through it. But I love that, and I want to make one point before we get off. I love how you said what I talk about online is to relate to what you're going through. But please know that in my personal life, these aren't the things I'm healing. I'm still healing. I'm growing. And I'm learning how to, when I talk about focus breathing, people, remember focus therapy, focus meditation, learning how to turn that anger into something else, learning how to turn that trigger into some running water, learning how to figure out, okay, I'm about to blow, but I remember that one day I want to go to Bali, and Bali has really beautiful woods, and the woods look like you learning how to redirect yourself so that you don't
Yeah,
crash out and then wake up and be like, oh my God, what did I do? So I really love that you are so active in your healing, but you're letting people know I see you, but where I'm gonna be and where I am now, you're gonna be someday. And then we get to meet there again in a different place.
right.
Thank you guys
Yes.
so much for being a part of the podcast. It has been so wonderful. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Hey guys, did you enjoy the podcast? I so enjoyed talking to Miss Epps. I think that one of the things that I love about her is not only the fact that she's helping women, because you know how I feel about assisting women, but it is her openness with the process of healing, right? Because I think that sometimes we have this tendency to like jump from steps 1, 2, and 3 to 12. And because we don't want to feel the discomfort, we don't want to know what it feels like to, really have to answer for the things that we've done. We don't know what it feels like to, we don't want to know what it feels like to just be held responsible for some of the things that we have caused. And also, we don't want to be responsible for what we've done to ourselves. We don't always want to admit that. But just talking to her gave you the sense that she is working on allowing you grace and space to accept that your healing is not linear, right? And that you are going to be in all these different spaces as you heal. And it's okay too. You're allowed to do that. It was such a good conversation. And, I wish nothing but the best for her because my goodness, she is rolling. I love it. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the podcast. Please like, subscribe, follow. We appreciate it so much. Where's my carrier pigeon? I don't know. Haven't seen him in a while. I got to work on him because he be out there doing whatever he wants to. And remember, we want to learn how to articulate our feelings, wants, needs, and desires so that we can better advocate for ourselves and the people that we love. I love you guys. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found some healing, connection, and joy. Until next time, bye, loves.